The rules for 2013 have not changed fundamentally. We're in for the same rules that we had last year, and that means, if anything, it'll be even more competitive. There'll be even more bunching up of the teams. I think you'll have a top tier of 4 or 5, and then a midfield section, and then you'll have Caterham and Marussia bringing up the rear just behind Toro Rosso.
In 2014 there are major rule changes, the single biggest one being that the normally aspirated V8 engine they currently use will be replaced by a turbocharged V6, which is a big change. So at some point this season, teams are going to have to make decisions about when they start shifting their focus onto next year's car.
It'll mean a lot of teams deploying half their personnel to work on the 2014 engine halfway through the 2013 season. So I think it could mean a very competitive, very exciting year in 2013.
The lack of technical edge is going to force the drivers to be much more competitive with each other, and it really will show us quite possibly who has got an edge on a very level playing field. We still have 5 world champions on the grid. The head of this group is going to be Sebastian Vettel. He comes into it with a major advantage in that he is in an incredibly good relationship with Red Bull and specifically with Adrian Newey. He's also very confident. He won the World Championship in 2010 at the death. In 2011 he dominated. In 2012 he really had to fight, and he really had to fight to the last. He's been through that big battle now to win the championship.
You know, the expectations are there, people expect something, but more than that we expect ourselves to do well again, so there's a lot of pressure.
Ferrari in pre-season practice looks like a quicker car. They could barely have built one that was as poor as at this time last year. They're going to make a much stronger start.
Master's got to put in a stronger season. The driver to watch will be Fernando Alonso, the best all-round driver out there. He's proved that year in, year out. He's a great driver. He's won 2 world championships. He'll be looking for a 3rd. But he'll be only one of a number of drivers to look at. Most of all, you've got Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, who's the quickest driver out there, a wonderful driver. And he'll be looking to prove that he made a right decision going to Mercedes, leaving McLaren, where he was for 15 years, and joining Mercedes, who people thought would be less competitive.
He, I feel, is going to have a struggle this year. Mercedes did not look quick in testing. It did not look like it was able to challenge McLaren, Ferrari or Red Bull for a front spot. So I think he's going to struggle, and I think he may, a few races in, be already thinking about 2014. You also have to include Jenson Button in this. He now leads McLaren. There's a reason the fans dig Jenson so much. He's a mature, well-tempered man. He's come through the fiery baptism of those terrible years driving for Honda, and he's come out of it at the end as a much more rounded driver, a much more rounded human being. And he will be really out there to prove that his 1 world championship was not a flash in the pan, that he can do this again. It's going to be exciting, I think, the first time we see Lewis and Jenson. They're now in different cars, and both will want to be able to prove a point to the other.
I think McLaren can stay ahead of Mercedes. I think they might have to fall back on their legendary resources and their manpower.
Mercedes may well find themselves fighting more with Lotus than they do with McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull. If they produce a package out of the box in Australia that really, really shocks us, then they'll be there at the front. But I have to say, their performance is likely to be looking at the back end of the front 3.
I think Lotus, they have in Kimi Raikkonen a wonderfully quick and experienced driver. He won't have lost any of that. In fact, he'll be fit from the word go. He didn't look particularly fit at the start of last season.
Any element of rustiness will be gone. Kimi isn't turning up to come second. Kimi wants to win. If he can get an extra 10% out of his car than he did last year, he will be regularly competing for wins.
Grosjean, if he eliminates the mistakes that he made last season, and Lotus get the points that he lost last season, I think Lotus are very feasible top 3 contenders.
What one may see is who heads the back end of the leaders fight between Lotus and Mercedes, and which one of the midfield can possibly poke their nose in and make a move on those two.
Force India, look, they've got a pretty tight package once again in the midfield. Sauber can be unpredictable, they can be quick, they can look after their tyres well, as they showed last year. And then Williams, great tradition, great history.
Everyone loves Williams, all the British fans love Williams, and everyone wants to see Williams do well. They're world title winners, they're a great racing team. we need to see how far Williams have come on. They should be fighting to be up with the top four. Early indications suggest that their car is better this year, and certainly Pastor Maldonado seemed pleased with it when he first took it out in practice. So it would be a great step forward for Williams if they can start repeatedly beating the Force Indias, the Saubers and the Toro Rossos. For the teams at the bottom, it's a difficult position. They probably aren't performing as well as they should, and certainly no one wants to see mobile chicanes trawling around at the back of the field. Marussia, interestingly, looked to have made more forward moves in the winter than Caterham do. The Caterham car, certainly in practice, looks a little bit unwieldy, and Marussia now have Kers attached for the first time to their car. So they would be looking to make a good step forward. Whether that step forward would put them into the midfield is a different kettle of fish, and I don't think it will. Key to the season, though, I think will be whether Sebastian Vettel can make it 4 titles in a row. That's a big ask, but it's hard not to think that he's in a very advantageous position.
We don't really want another epoch after Schumacher and Ferrari. We want somebody else to win. I don't think anyone begrudged Sebastian Vettel his hat-trick. After all, he's a wonderful driver, driving for a wonderful team. But now I think we want to change. But if I had to put money on it, it would be Red Bull again, and it would be Vettel again.